Meet Cynthia Covey. She's Stephen's daughter, and she contributed to the writing of several books, notably The Third Alternative by Stephen R. Covey, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and The 6 Most Important Decisions You'll Ever Make, both by Sean Covey.
They're write down, what are your most important roles and why? How successful, judge success by how well you are successful in those, rather than what the world or society would determine as success.
Welcome, entrepreneur movers and shakers. Thanks for joining in with us. We're all here to learn. We're here to get better in life and in our business. And we all have our goals, our objectives, and we sometimes struggle to find our purpose and the meaning for everything. We talk about that here and there in my episodes. And while we do that, when we get a chance to learn from someone who's been there, it's such a welcome relief. We all want to hear from the giants in our industry who can help us get to our destination a whole lot faster. And that's why I interview people at the top of their category, whom I call elite entrepreneurs. These people that they refuse to give up, and they really wanted to make something great for themselves. And today we have the opportunity to hear from someone who's worked with the renowned Stephen R. Covey. He's the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which was named the #1 most influential business book of the 20th century. Our guest today helped Stephen on several of his books and is going to tell you about her latest book as well. We're going to talk about living in Crescendo with Cynthia Covey. And while we're at it, this is all about helping you and your friends move on your journey to success. We want to help you get very successful, and we're going to help turn you into an elite entrepreneur. Meet Cynthia Covey. She's Stephen's daughter, and she contributed to the writing of several books, notably The Third Alternative by Stephen R. Covey, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and The 6 Most Important Decisions You'll Ever Make, both by Sean Covey. Does that have your attention? I think that says enough. Let's get into it. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show.
Hi, Tony. I'm so honored that you'd have me. I'm really excited to be on your show.
The pleasure is mine, and we're all looking forward to learning about living in Crescendo, and it's quite a title. But right before we kind of dig into that, Cynthia, could you tell us, how did it all start for you? What's your backstory?
I'd love to. As you mentioned, I'm Stephen and Sandra Covey's. I'm the oldest of 9 children. I'm known as the mother hen in the family. So I look after my brood now that they're both passed on. But this happened years ago. My father this was like in 2008, and he was juggling a lot of books and projects, and I foolishly asked him, "Hey, Dad, are you going to ever write anything as good as 7 Habits?" And he kind of was insulted. He's like, "Gosh, I wrote that in 1989. What do you think I've been doing for the last 30, 40 years? You know, I feel like I still have a lot to contribute, and that's why I get up every day, hoping that I can share some ideas that will also inspire people." And so he said, one of these I'm working on was his personal mission statement, the last 10 years of his life, which is live life in crescendo. And I think that I'll explain about what that means, but I think he adopted that because people would ask him when he was in his 70s, when are you going to retire? When are you going to, why are you still traveling? Why are you still speaking and writing? And he felt like, why shouldn't I? I still have passion for what I'm doing. Hopefully I'm making a difference. I want to contribute and to give as much as I can. And I'm not stopping any time. And our family retirement was like the R word. We didn't say retirement. So anyway, he asked me if I would take his ideas and make them practical, find some examples of people who were famous and non-famous who lived their lives in crescendo. And so I did that. We worked together for a few years. And then unfortunately, he passed away much too soon, a little bit unexpectedly. And so I finished the book. It took me 10 years to finish after he passed, but I knew he felt as passionate about this material as his 7 Habits or anything that he'd written previously. So I felt driven to finish it. And so Simon & Schuster published it last year.
That's absolutely amazing. So as I get it, Stephen wanted to write it and started on it, and then you picked up from there, or this was, or can you kind of take us into a little bit more how that all happened?
Sure. He actually just said, interview me for some ideas and then you write it. And that's what I did. It was, he had so many books and projects going. He basically assigned me to write it in his stead and with his permission. And I wrote it in his voice. It's his ideas and his perspective. And just to explain a little bit, would you like me to talk about the crescendo mentality and what that means, that definition?
We're going to go into that in just a few moments.
Sure.
But first, I'm tracking with this as well as our audience, and I'm thinking, what was I understand that you wanted, did you want to carry on the legacy? What was your purpose for doing this? Why did you even spend 10 years? Which is not the right way to ask the question. I don't mean to be rude, but you spent 10 years putting this together. Why? Yeah. What's the purpose on this?
I understand your question. Well, it was his goal. He had a vision that this material, the crescendo mentality perspective, which is kind of a paradigm, like a pair of glasses that you put on and how you see life. He felt like it would give people hope when they had setbacks. He wanted to reach people who had already experienced a lot of success, pinnacle of success people that have done it all, and what's next. He wanted to affect people that felt like they were stuck in a midlife and felt they weren't as successful as he thought they were. And then the last area that we talked about was the second half of life, where people were asking him, when are you going to retire? And the important things and the contributions you can make your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, if you're able to physically and mentally. And so he had a real passion and a vision for this work. And the subtitle of the book is as important as Live Life from Crescendo. The subtitle says, your most important work is always ahead of you. And that my father really believed that no matter what you had experienced, what you've gone through, what setbacks, what challenges you've faced, what success you've had in your life, how old you were, whatever, you still always have work to contribute and something to contribute to your family and those around you.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to ask a little bit more about that in just a moment. We're talking about Living in Crescendo with Cynthia Covey-Haller, and you can find her on LinkedIn. That's the best place you want to chat with her, Cynthia Covey-Haller. Cynthia, let's get into the vision path here. We are entrepreneurs, we're business owners in the audience. Help us learn. And perhaps let's start here. You mentioned it, so let's get into it. What is the crescendo mentality?
Okay. Are you musical, Tony? Do you like music?
Yes, to a degree. I am not musical in terms of playing an instrument, though I've tried playing an instrument before. Though in another life, I think I used to be a piano player because I'm very good and very fluent at typing and moving my fingers, but yeah, that's another life.
Yeah. Well, my father wasn't musical. He loved music, but he wasn't musical. But he adopted this symbol for his mission statement because you know what a crescendo is, right? When you go to a concert and you feel the music building in power and intensity and energy, and it gets louder and it fills the arena. It's fantastic. It keeps growing and expanding. Well, that's a crescendo. The opposite is diminuendo, another musical term, and that means that the music slows and it lessens, less power, less energy and intensity, and pretty soon it comes to an absolute stop. It quits. And so the challenge that he wants to issue is that at any age or stage in our life, and despite failures or past successes, and what circumstance we find ourselves in, we have the choice to choose to live in crescendo or to live in diminuendo, depending on how we approach life. And so it's just the idea that in crescendo, the same like music, in crescendo, according to life, you would keep learning, keep stretching, keep growing, start over if you need to, keep reinventing yourself, keep producing and contributing as you get older instead of diminuendo, which is basically, shutting down. I've been there, done that. I don't have more to contribute to learn. I'm going to sit and watch TV until I die. I'm living in diminuendo. And so it was there are two terms that, if I could share a story about this, in my book, I talk about an amazing person named Anthony Ray Hinton. And he was living in Alabama in the 80s. And he was he was basically framed of killing two people in his small community. And he was actually in a lockdown facility 15 miles away from when the murders occurred. But somehow they implicated him. And he found himself, he knew he was innocent, so he didn't worry, and went to his trial and literally was convicted of killing these two men, and was sentenced to not only life imprisonment, but to death row. And so he was so angry when he went into his cell that he took his Bible and threw it under his bed and determined, you know what, if they think I'm guilty, I'm going to shut down. I've got nothing to give. I'm done, and I'm not going to speak to anyone. So he maintained that for 3 long, miserable years. He did not speak to any guards, any inmates, to anyone besides the few family and friends that visited him. And he basically was living in diminuendo. He was shutting down. When one night at like 2 a.m, he heard in the cell next to him, his cellmate just sobbing and begging for someone to help him with his pain. And it awoke in Ray the good person that he was, and the compassion and that he had. And he realized, I can't choose if I'm on death row. I can't choose that I'm here, but I can choose my response to being here. And I can choose to show compassion to this person that's suffering. So he broke his three years of silence and spoke to the man, and found out that his mother had just passed away. And he was devastated, and knowing he would never see her. And he spent the night comforting a total stranger and trying to give him hope to hang on. And from that point on, Ray determined that he was going to choose a better way to respond to what happened to him. And for the next, if you could believe, almost 30 years, he endured this incarceration until he got the attention of Brian Stevenson with Equal Justice Initiative, who helped him get out of prison. And when he walked out, while he was there, he started a book club with the prisoners. He became friends with the guards. He increased his knowledge, his wisdom. He kept growing. He blessed other people's life and became a hope and a beacon to many people on death row. So when he was finally proven that he was wrongly incarcerated and that it was all a sham, he was released from prison and came out and said, "The sun does shine," to his family and friends. And this became the title of a New York bestselling book that he wrote 4 years later, talking about the experience that he went through and how he not only found the courage and dignity to endure what he went through, but to live and inspire others. And so Anthony Ray now, like I said, for 3 years, he was in diminuendo. He didn't have any influence. He was bitter. He was angry when he wasn't speaking. He was shut down. But as he decided, that he was going to make better choices about what happened, how he was going to respond to what happened to him, then now he is an activist. He helps other people with the Equal Justice Initiative who are also wrongly accused. He's an author. He's a speaker. His life is expanding in Crescendo, and he is making amazing contributions throughout the United States. So that's just an example, Tony, of choosing to live in Crescendo or diminuendo.
What a great story. I really appreciate you sharing that. It's like, what a shock. What a shock what happened. I'm so glad that justice finally saw the light of day. And as part of that, on the crescendo mentality, Stephen Covey says we need to redefine success. And I thought, it would be really great. We have you on. Can we do that now? What is success? How do you define it?
Okay. Well, to him, being successful was being successful in your most important roles. It's usually being successful is by how much money you have, by your influence, by your name, by how well you're known and what you've done, that shows off to people, kind of what he called secondary greatness. But primary greatness is being successful in the roles that are truly most important. And when you can determine that by what would be important to you at the end of your life, your roles in your family as a son, daughter, father, mother, child, and uncle, as your roles in the community, as in your neighborhood, looking out for people, being mentors, your roles in your profession. This is a great program, Tony, where you are contributing to people's lives. You're helping them live in Crescendo by having guests on, giving them more knowledge and more wisdom, so that they can increase in their life and have more purpose and meaning in their life. Identify. So he would challenge people to write down what are your most important roles and why. How successful, judge success by how well you are successful in those, rather than what the world or society would determine as success, which we know is pretty fleeting. You can be a starting quarterback one day, and you could be the president of the United States, or you could have a big business and a lot of money, and we all know it can vanish quickly. And at the end of one's life, most people aren't bragging about the money they had or what the influence they had. They're talking about their most important relationships and things that matter most to them, at the end. And so that was how we just defined success, is being successful in your most important roles.
I really like that. And part of that, in terms of what we live for, what we want to accomplish in our life. And this is very important for us entrepreneur and business people in the audience. Where are we going with this? What is it that we want to do? You can't take anything with you. So what is it that you can take? Well, you can, you can take your accomplishment with you. You can take what you've done with you, but you can't take anything else of this earth. And as part of that, kind of like a lead-in, is that you say that life is about contribution, not accumulation. And I love that. So I'd like to dive into that and the meaning of life, and kind of, not to get too esoteric here for the audience, but we are entrepreneurs. We're here to learn, to improve our business. So I want to connect this with the working world that we live in and so forth.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas that my father felt strongly about, that when I would interview him for this book, that he said, I really want to emphasize that life is about contribution, not accumulation. And like you said, everyone is, they're running businesses. You need to make money. You need to be successful and make money for your families and for your own career and things. But he would always say, you might retire from a job or a career, but you never retire from making meaningful contributions to your family, to your community, to those around you. One of the mission statements of this book, I think, that is an inspiring quote, is actually by Pablo Picasso, kind of an unusual person for this quote, but he wrote that the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. And so in Live Life at Crescendo, my father challenges people to be real introspective, to look at their unique talents and skills and wisdom and experience they've gathered, like being entrepreneurs, being family members, being in the community, all the things that you've learned, and thinking, what is my unique mission to contribute to others? Because as we serve others, as you serve and bless other people and expand your circle of influence, it does so much good. It's like a domino effect. And it also can give you so much more purpose and meaning in your own life. And sometimes if you're going through a really hard setback or a trial and you help somebody else, it really puts things into perspective and it helps you work out your own problems. So that was one of the main points of the book, is to find your gift and to give it to others.
And I think of that story you just told us about that gentleman who was in jail on death row for a very long time, and the contribution that he gave and is giving as a result of that. So it's very, very interesting. It's quite something. And earlier in this, at the very beginning, you mentioned the subtitle of your book, and that which the subtitle is, Your most important work is always ahead of you. Now, some of us may be struggling just to get our life and our business going, just to get ahead. It's really tough sometimes to look ahead. We say it's like, oh yeah, just look ahead in the future. And there's ways to do it, yet we have to do it. We're compelled to do it. So I would love some advice and help on how we can do that, especially if we're struggling just trying to get things going.
Right. One example my father used is that if you're driving in a car and you're just driving along, how far would you get if you kept looking in the rear view mirror at what you left behind you, or even over your shoulder? You'd probably look in the rear view mirror, you'd probably end up in a ditch pretty soon. So he said, don't focus on past failures or even past successes. Look ahead at what you can bring about. So, for example, there's 4 different areas of life that we talk about in this book. One is the midlife, one is the pinnacle of success, one is life-changing setbacks, and the last is the second half of life. Well, in the midlife section, it tells a story about a man whose business just fell apart. He started a construction company, and through a series of unfortunate events, things that happened, he lost control of it and was pushed out by his partners. So he's 47 years old. He has 4 kids. He's unemployed. And he's thinking, oh, I lost my job. I lost my career. What am I going to do now? So here's the choice right now. Live in crescendo, live in diminuendo. Keep looking in the rearview mirror, be angry, be bitter, sue these people, do all these things, or think, okay, what can I do? What are my choices going forward? So he determined, I've always wanted to go to law school. So at 47 years old, he enrolls in law school. He's accepted. He's the oldest one in the class by like half. I mean, he doubles everybody. And he said one morning he pulled into the law school parking lot, 5 a.m. It's pitch black, freezing cold, and fear and anxiety and doubt just crept over him. And he thought, what in the world am I doing? How can I do this? I'm 47. I'm starting law school. I'm going to school with people in their mid-20s. And, and he had said he had to consciously fight, looking in the rearview mirror, thinking, I can't do it, fight his failure, feeling of failure and doom, and just focused on, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to make it happen. My father talked about using your resourcefulness and initiative. He called it R&I. So he says, I'm going to use my R&I. I'm going to make it happen. So he fought his fears and doubts, and for 2.5 years went year round in law school, graduated at 49. By the time he was 50, he set up a brand new law practice, and within a couple of years had as much business as he could handle. So I think that there's examples, we all know people that have had some real failures and had some things happen and think, okay, how are they going to handle it? And some, get bogged down in it and throw in the towel and are angry and bitter and don't progress, don't learn from it. And others will take that same setback and make something of it and go on and accomplish a lot of things. The idea that your most important work is still ahead means you have hope and a belief that I still have more to contribute. I'm not done here. And I might have been a failure at this business or something happened, but I can see down the road like this Ray Hinton. I mean, he didn't know when he was in prison that he would be speaking to hundreds of people across the United States, talking about being incarcerated and helping them, and expanding and blessing other people's lives. And now he is. So I think we really have a choice, Tony, in our circumstances, in different stages and ages, to determine where am I on that continuum between diminuendo and crescendo, and move toward more toward the crescendo end by deciding, no, I still have important work and contributions to make. I'm not giving up.
This is very stimulating and exactly what I love to communicate to our fellow entrepreneurs and business people in the audience. This is the stuff, because it's this type of mentality that leads to success and getting away from struggling and looking more through the front windshield instead of the rear. And as part of that, something that I noticed that you said is you say that life is a mission, not a career. And I'm fully on board with that. But you also say that we don't invent our mission in life, but rather we find it.
Can I come back to that in just a sec, Tony? I just thought of a great example of my father doing what you talked about. We're saying as a business, his profession was he was a teacher. He taught at a university, organizational behavior. And he kind of went through a midlife himself a little bit, where he'd been teaching for 20 years there. And he felt like he was stagnating a little bit. He had a really, like they said that if you haven't taken Stephen Covey's organizational behavior 358 class, you didn't get a degree at this university. I mean, he was a popular class and he was doing well, but he felt like he wasn't progressing and growing and really contributing as well as he could. And so he made the determination with my mother, with 9 kids and a teacher's salary, to put everything in hawk and step out into the unknown and try. He had this great idea about the 7 habits of highly successful people that he wanted to take to organizations all across the United States and eventually the world. And he did that. He left his secure job and insurance and with all these kids, and determined to, he started Covey Leadership Center. And then he started teaching the 7 habits of highly effective people with businesses that would hire him. And he eventually published that book. And so he kind of had to take a step, leave a little bit of out of a comfort zone and try to live in Crescendo himself. And it didn't catch on right away. It took a couple years before this material really solidified with one organization after another. When the top 100 companies started asking him to speak, then it really caught on. But, he had his own struggles. It wasn't always easy for him as well. But back to your life as a mission, not a career. As I mentioned before, he said you can leave a job and a career, but you don't leave contributing your whole life. You still keep contributing. And the reason why he said life is a mission is because of a man. He was inspired by a man named I just blanked out. Oh, Viktor Frankl, which you've heard of, Man Search for Meaning. And he's the one that said, we don't invent our missions, we detect them. We detect them within ourselves. My father took this to mean that, as I was saying earlier, that you analyze what is my unique mission in life? What am I a person that would care about the community, would build up our food bank is struggling? Am I going to help there? Am I aware of the schools that are overcrowded and that they need more teachers or they need more people to come in, more volunteers? Is my mission to give hope through different avenues that I feel like I have skills in? So he says, you don't really invent them. You detect what you're good at, what your talents and your abilities are, and then you create your own unique mission. It doesn't have to be extraordinary to make an extraordinary difference. Somebody like one time a homeless advocate was speaking to a group of in a community and telling about how their involvement and help could make a difference in others' lives. And one lady in her 80s raised her hand and said, how can you're telling me I can make a difference? How can I? I'm on a fixed income. I don't get out much. I'm in my 80s. How do I make a difference? And she said to her, could you donate 1 can of soup a week? She said, yes, I could do that. She said, imagine a single mother opening up that can and feeding 2 or 3 hungry children before they go to bed at night. Do you think that would make a difference to that family? Yes, I do. And so from that point on, this older woman in her mid-80s donated 1 can of soup every week for several years and influenced hundreds of people, affected hundreds of people. So Theodore Roosevelt says, do what you can with what you have where you are. And so we all have to just start where we are. And this detect your own mission, that's one of the challenges in this book, is to determine what is my unique calling or mission in life, that when I finally leave this earth, that I feel like that's my legacy. That's what I can leave that will still continue without me. How can I bless others through that?
Great, great. Very stimulating, invigorating, and insightful. I love it. And as I'm thinking through this, and I don't want to throw you a surprise question, we're talking about living in crescendo. And I'm just thinking, is there a time in your life where you had a big failure, just huge, and you just switched from looking in the rear view to looking out through that windshield, and you just you beat the biggest failure in your life by living in crescendo?
That's a good question, Tony. I'm the mother of 6 kids, and I have lots of grandkids, and very involved with them as well as in the community and things. But I felt really strongly that I needed to get this book out, and that's why it took 10 years. It was a struggle. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I had kids and grandkids and other jobs and things that I was doing in the community and in my church and in volunteer situations. And I had a lot of fear and doubt that, like, okay, my father has a big name. I don't have the connections he did. Am I spending all this time? Is this actually going to get published? And I had to fight it every day. I had to think, no, this is a vision my father had. It's great. It's good material because it's hopeful, it's inspiring, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to get this published. And Simon and Schuster, who published my dad's first book, I sold them on the idea: you published his first book, now publish his last, and they did. But I think my looking forward and not looking in the rearview mirror was when I'd be staying up till 2 a.m, writing stories, writing things out, and going to bed thinking, I hope this is going to work. I hope that something will come of this, and just getting up the next day and continuing to do it. So I don't know. I think that was I had to live in crescendo to finish the book about living in crescendo. And that's what the crescendo mentality is. Like I was saying, it's like a pair of glasses that you put on that changes the perspective to everything that you see, everything around you. For example, some people in your audience are probably pretty successful entrepreneurs, right, Tony? That some of them have had big careers, and CEOs and people that are managers and have had some big responsibility. So that's pinnacle of success. You look at someone like a Jimmy Carter. He was the president of the United States, but he was not a popular president. He was on during the Iran-Contra, during the hostages. He didn't get reelected. And so he went back to Plains, Georgia. And what are his options? He could build an expensive, give expensive speeches like a lot of them do, build his library and just bide his time. But what have the Carters been known for? And Rosalind just passed away. What are they known for, Tony? What's their greatest contribution, would you say?
I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm not too sure.
Well, you've heard about Habitat for Humanity?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Building homes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Here you'd think, okay, he's reached the pinnacle of his success, and same with Rosalind, the president and first lady in the whole country. So how much higher can you get than that? Well, their greatest contributions, like the subtitle of the book, were still ahead. Within 1 year of leaving the White House, he started the Carter Peace, I can't think of it, Carter Peace Center to help resolve conflicts. And then he has become the face, he and Rosalind, of Habitat for Humanity, building homes for thousands and thousands of people who have never had a decent place to live. Up until just lately, and Rosalind just passed away, as we heard. They have their greatest contributions were still ahead. He may not go down as the greatest president we've ever had, but he's by far the greatest post-president in terms of contributions we've ever had. And so with your listeners, some of those that are very successful, you've made a lot of money, you've reached the top. So what's next? Just going to Florida and sitting on a beach and relaxing and biding your time? Or looking around, taking your unique skills, your wisdom, your experience, your networking, everything you've accumulated in these decades that you've built an awesome business or organization, and apply it somewhere else. Maybe in something you feel passionate about, a charitable cause. Maybe in your family, one of your kids or grandkids or nephew or niece has a drug problem. what kind of a mentor could you be to this person? What would you mean to somebody else, that if you would lend your skills and your abilities and all your experience and still contribute, even though you've already reached the pinnacle of success as the world defines it in terms of money and power and doing well in a business? What more can you give so that your greatest contributions are still to come, and ones that would be lasting, like serving somebody else?
Absolutely great points there. And it's, what can we do? Because when you give out and give to the society and help, it comes back, even though it may not be planned. It just does. Again, you just can't keep everything with you. You've got to flow it. I think flows have a lot to do with it. You have to flow out and help people, and then it does come back. Just, you have to, not everyone sees that. It's like, some people don't see that if they give, that it'll come back to them, but it does. But that should not be the reason to give. You should give because you're looking through that front windshield or through those glasses, right, and you're living in Crescendo. So I love it.
That's right. And think about the people. If you, maybe, do you have somebody, Tony, that believed in you when nobody else did? Could you identify somebody in your life that, my father would ask big audiences, who believed in you when maybe you didn't even believe in yourself? Can you think of somebody in your life, Tony?
Oh, that would be my wife. Absolutely. No question. We've been together about 30 years now.
That's awesome.
She's been there as a mainstay through the ups and downs, and people have heard my story here and there. And it's just, things happen, life happens. Hey, most of the world, or all of the world, went through some serious ups and downs in the past couple of years. And who's there to help you get back up on your feet when something really bad crashes? And so that's, yeah, my wife has helped me quite a bit. And
that's awesome. That's wonderful to have a long-lasting relationship like that. My father's a definition of leadership was, leadership is believing in someone's worth and potential, so was communicating another's worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it in themselves. And so to communicate to another person, somebody who's struggling, that's around you in your family, someone in your business world, maybe there's a sharp person, a man or woman in your organization that has a lot of potential, but they're pretty rough around the edges, or they just are scared, or they just need some confidence. What if you were to mentor that person and become a guide and a light to them and to help them? What would it mean to them down the road that they would point to you and say, I was floundering as an intern in my business. I just had started as a salesperson, or I was a manager and wasn't doing well, but the boss or whoever took me under his wing and helped me see in myself worth and potential that I didn't even see. He saw something in me, some greatness that I didn't see, and he helped bring it out. Imagine the domino effect of that in someone's life. Wouldn't that be a great contribution to make, to mentor others and to seek out those that are struggling in a business setting, in a family setting, in the community, anywhere, and change their life for the better? What a contribution.
It's true. And after 7 years, I've been podcasting. I've been doing that, but that's a whole different story. But I'm actually doing that with the Patreon. I mean, I could create classes like most anybody and charge 3, 4, not even 3, 4 plus 5 digits and stuff like that. But I'm just doing it. I'm just doing a very simple Patreon just to help and mentor people with what I know and pass it on.
That sounds like your unique mission that you found it, Tony, because that's, look at the domino effect of that influence on others, helping to mentor other people and help them find success also. That's a great contribution.
It's the future. Well, thank you. And once again, we spoke about living in Crescendo with Cynthia Covey-Haller. And again, find her and connect with her on LinkedIn. Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I love it. Very stimulating and motivating. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. I really love talking to you. I appreciate being on your show.